Hello, team. Welcome to another ATP Geopolitics and Greg Terry Experience co-stream. One that hasn't happened for an awful long time. In fact, Greg has grown his hair down to his shoulders and then got it cut just yesterday because it's been that long, and he's now sporting his new hairstyle. So nice barnet, mate. Greg,
Well, thank you, brother.
it's been a long time. How are you, my good man?
I'm doing very well. I'm frustrated right now because literally I was joining your studio, and at the moment I was joining, I mean, guys, literally I was in. You do your name, and then you check your audio connection and your ears and speaker connection, and I went to connect, and literally, bloop, all power gone. So, to be honest, it's extremely frustrating. That's just straight. It's living in a war zone. It's extremely frustrating. Additionally, we're already seeing problems like, okay, so here's reality 101. Everything is running and then there's no power. So it's affecting my computers. It's affecting my monitors. These things are not designed just to turn off. And this is happening nonstop. Our coffee pot destroyed. Our grill destroyed and it's good quality stuff where I live. It's just power on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off.
Are these scheduled and non-announced losses? Do you have scheduled power cuts as well?
We do have scheduled, but that is irrelevant. So even though you may see on the internet or Telegram, whatever, scheduled power outages, and they'll say, okay, you're going to be out from 4 to 8 and then from 12 to 4, none of that is exact to the moment. There are times where you're scheduled to be out and you stay on. There are times when you're not scheduled to be out, or you're scheduled to be on and you're off. So it's not like you can say, okay, we're definitely going to be off at 4. At 10 to 4, let me start shutting stuff down and try to protect my stuff. It's not possible because 90% of the time, it's never exactly on the moment. And just so folks know, I called my buddy. The power went out. I messaged Johnny from my phone. I said, dude, just delay a second. Let me go to a backup plan, get some battery power running. And he graciously did. And I called my buddy. I said, what's going on? He goes, we've lost power everywhere. And we're not supposed to today. So this is an unexpected power outage. And it's just a part of being in the war.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I've been quite impressed. I don't know what your thoughts are on this, because it's quite often I get an idea of how things are, from a distance, and the idea on the ground from people like yourself is sometimes different. I've been very impressed with how Ukraine has been able to cope with these waves of drone attacks, and the drone attacks have been consistent and really quite large. So it used to be you get these ups and downs. So every couple of weeks there'd be like a large drone attack, or they'd coincide with a missile attack as well. But the last week, since that huge strike before, there've been like 50 a night. And they must have such an increased capacity of manufacturing drones in Russia. They can make their own versions of those Shahid drones now, the Garan 2, as they're called, the Russians call them. Anyway, but actually, in terms of interception and electronic warfare, the Ukrainians, according to their own stats, are putting out an almost 100% interception rate. It's a 95% rate. Now, compared to a year and a half ago, that's really good. Obviously, some still get through, but I think they're doing a really good job of those drones. Ballistic missiles or something else. What's your thoughts on that?
For sure. Ukraine is doing a good job, especially if you take it even to the next step with the amount of air supply they have
Mm.
and how sporadic it is. I mean, to be honest with you, these Shahid drones are very easy to shoot down. I'm just gonna tell you straight.
Yeah,
Okay, I mean, I you could shoot them down, Johnny.
yeah,
So it's just as long as Ukraine has the supply, they can take
yeah.
them out. And you yourself, probably when you were with us, you probably saw some air defense Gepard guns and different things mounted on the back of trucks. And the Ukrainians do a phenomenal job. We supply air defense with lasers and other types of vision to help them do their job. They do a fantastic job. Um, I
It's as much about
I can't be any more positive about it because the truth is
yeah,
they really do a good job. The bottom line is it's nonstop, guys.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
nonstop.
And it's those ones that do. It's rather similar to their approach to taking a tree line. So they'll attack a tree line with 50 people and hope that 5 of them get there, and then attack with another 50 people, and then another 5 get there, and eventually, 20 people have got there and they've got the tree line, but they've lost an awful lot. It's the same kind of with drones and missiles. It's like there's 50 drones. 2 will get through, 5 will get through, 8 will get through, and then that builds up over time to be attritional and destructive.
The other thing that I would remind people of, and I actually had a meeting this morning with a guy about this. I don't know the percentage. Okay, so I do not know the percentage, but many of the drones that are flying around Ukraine that are Shaheeds and even some others, they don't even have armaments on them, and that's not because Russia does not have armaments. It's because they're just photoing their camera. They're running optics, and they're scouting out for future mass missile attacks. So that also helps Ukraine, to be quite honest, because if every drone that was flying over here had armaments on it, even if they're shot down, unless they're exploded, when they hit the ground, they blow up.
Yeah. So what goes up must come down. So even when you're successful in your interceptions, they cause destruction. It just you're lucky if it's in a field, but otherwise it's going to be in some kind of urban civilian environment. Yeah.
Well, and logically, I can tell you guys, drones that come through the south. You guys probably saw a video a few days ago where I was with Oleg Nikolaevich, and we were right on the line where they come up through Mykolaiv, and they come into Ukraine, and they go west, and they go to the central part, and basically over Kherson, Johnny, just straight up, coming out of Crimea, and they come straight up, and he just says it's just unbelievable how many drones are flying. So, but what I want to say here is in southern Ukraine, where air defense is located, and this is not operational security, this is logical. A lot of the air defense is trying to take these drones down in rural areas, so they never make it to the more populated and larger cities. So that is very positive. Where the problems come in is when they release the drones and they're coming over Sumy. There you go. You already know what I'm talking about. Over Sumy and Kharkiv. Those become a little bit more of a problem, and even Chernihiv. So southern drones are defended, to be honest, much more, a little bit better. It's wide open territory. You're not dealing with forests. You're dealing with wide open plains where the drones can be spotted. And then, of course, a lot of that depends on weather, night, clouds, et cetera, et cetera. But in general, back to your initial statement, even though I am sitting in the dark right now, well, not literally the dark, I'm sitting powerless. Ukraine doing a fantastic job, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's just, the challenge is, well, the question is how many ballistic missiles are Russia able to manufacture or procure. And there's talk about how, although these are shorter distance ballistic missiles, but the Iranians have given supposedly 200 missiles. And in fact, Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State for the US, is presently in the UK right now, just given us a statement about the reaction to the US admitting that those ballistic missiles have gone to Russia. Now, so a few details are worth noting. These ballistic missiles are shorter range. They're kind of like a short to medium range ballistic missiles, considering the whole range.
As I understand, and as I remember, so correct me where I'm wrong, I think it's 112 kilometer range.
Exactly that. Yeah. So exactly that. I was going to say 110 kilometers. So those are the sort of missiles you'd use into the rear of the front lines to hit things like, I don't know, HIMARS, if you could find it, that kind of stuff. They're thought to have been located in Voronezh when a massive detonation went off maybe a week and a half ago. There are rumors that last night's strike in Moscow area was a strike on those Iranian missiles as well. Don't know. So the reaction from the US, unfortunately, it is like there will be serious consequences. The consequences are sanctions. I don't know how much the US can do really without going to war with Iran, other than to lift bloody restrictions on Ukraine using missiles deeper into Russian territory. And I believe that is what the UK is trying to convince today Blinken and therefore Biden on doing. So Keir Starmer, there's been this thing about Storm Shadow cruise missiles. The UK said you're allowed to use them, and then suddenly our MOD said no, you're not allowed to use them deep into Russia, and it's not coming from the UK. That is apparently coming from the US. As in, you can't use Western weapons deep into Russia, or we will stop supplying Ukraine with weapons ourselves. So the UK today is supposedly trying to convince the US to lift its restrictions, and at the same time, the Biden administration has finally presented a report to Congress that was supposed to be part of the $61 billion aid package. They're supposed to bring a strategy 45 days after that aid package, and it's now September, but it's finally got there. There are some rumors that it might be part of the strategy could be lifting the restrictions.
Okay, let me just interrupt you for a second on that, because I know you, and this is not about politics. Okay, but everybody wants to scream about Russia drawing lines in the sand and changing it and changing it and changing it. What's the difference than what the United States and Europe is doing? There's no difference. We talk, we run our mouths, we send money, and we promise to do things, and then we do not fulfill it. So until action takes place, there's no difference. Listen, the United States was supposed to receive a report from the Biden administration. I'm not being political. They never got it.
Yeah.
Until now.
Yeah.
So the administration did not fulfill its promised duties. So all that is talking heads. I don't care if it's a Republican, a Democrat, an independent, or Dr. Seuss. Everybody right now is running their stinking mouths, but nobody is doing anything of significance. And right now, I visited a hospital yesterday with dozens and dozens and dozens of soldiers only from Khmelnytsky City whose legs are blown off. So I'm sick of hearing, this is what we're going to do. And then everybody wants to start talking this and talking that. The bottom line is, until the world steps up and starts to deliver not only aid, not only words, but actually put some action behind their rhetoric, Putin will continue to laugh. Shoigu will continue to laugh. They will talk their red lines, but Americans and Europeans are doing no different.
So here's my solution to this, and
please give one.
Yeah, because I think this is fairly sensible. So what the end result is, so what do you want? You want restrictions lifted on firing missiles, but because they put those restrictions on, they should never have done it in the first place. You just do things without communicating stuff, and then there aren't red lines. So the first problem is we present red lines and then we write those red lines ourselves. So the US administration said, we don't want you to fire deep into Russia. Well, that should never have been said. Just do it. And then it's kind of mission creep. You allow them to go, or you just don't tell anyone about those red lines.
Johnny Pearce, I absolutely adore you. And if I was in the UK right now, I'd kiss your bald head right where the light is shining. Yes, sir. 1,000,000% I agree. If you never talk about red lines, if you never talk about you have this permission, you don't have this permission, then nobody can ever come back and say, well, the US did this. Well,
yeah, exactly.
This is a NATO proxy war. Well, this is America fighting us. Well, this is Great Britain fighting us. No, keep your mouth shut and bring the hammer.
Yeah. And further to that, so the second part of my solution is, okay, so the red line's already been done. So how do you reverse this? Well, it's not a case of saying now in the middle of nowhere, okay, we're going to allow weapons to be fired deeper into Russia now. So if you announce that, then you are crossing the red line that you have set yourself. So what should be done, and I've explained this to my viewers previously, what you should do is you provide Russia with the red lines. And this is what really pees me off about the whole war, is that everyone is dancing to Russia's tune. Everyone is dancing to Russia's tune when we should be the ones playing the music and saying, dance, monkey, dance. And we should be saying, right, if you take on Iranian missiles and North Korean missiles and fire them into Ukraine, then Ukraine will have the right to fire missiles deeper into Russia. So it's like it's Russia that does the escalation. So Russia crossed the red line that you set, and then you allow the Ukraine to use those missiles, and it's Russia's fault.
It is cooperating with Russia's narrative at the minimum, and I could you imagine going to a gunfight and your hands were tied behind your back? I mean, think about it.
Yeah, I know that's exactly how it is. I mean, Prof. Gerdes, to be fair, I'm going to change the rules because I know I can't at the moment, but I am going to be running for president. We'll see if I can just squeeze in. I know I'm not born there, but we'll forget that one. And I know it's too late in the ballots, blah, blah, blah. But I reckon, I've got 45,000 followers and not many of them are for the US. I reckon I've got enough reach to be, I'll think about it.
But Johnny, you have a beautiful accent and a wonderful glowing light on that shiny dome.
There's there are a lot of thoughts in here. Unfortunately, most of them, almost all of them, are about Ukraine, folks, and not enough about American domestic politics.
To be quite honest, you guys, it's like Johnny and I just said hello. We miss each other, and we hit the ground running on this one. And you caught me at a time. Not you caught me. We've scheduled this since yesterday, but I can't. Professor Gerdes called me last night. I was coming back home, and I told him, I said, man, the hospital I just left, I can't even describe it. Okay, guys, and I've been inside the Bakhmut field hospitals. I've been in field hospitals on the southern front at Kherson, Mykolaiv, where soldiers are being treated immediately. I've been in the stabilization points, and that's close to the zero. But here in Khmelnytsky, every Tuesday and every Friday, we receive a train full of wounded soldiers. And it's just Khmelnytsky City every Tuesday and every Friday. And then I have to see that. I don't have to, I choose to. In fact, I'm probably going to be setting up an interview with one of the wounded soldiers to tell his story, kind of like a little biographical sketch. Yeah. And he wants to tell his story. So working on that, get all the permissions for that. But when you're there like that, and then you see what's happening in the news with the red lines, and then earlier this morning I released a video about Ukraine's large-scale mass drone attack through the night. I called it a drone swarm. But then I also translated Shoigu's madness, talking about the terrorist incursion into Kursk and the terrorist Nazi regime coming after the Kursk nuclear power plant. And as long as that happens, there can never be, conversations.
And Shoigu today, sorry.
Yeah. No, and then nowhere in the conversation is over 20% of Ukrainian sovereign territory is controlled by Russia right now in complete pure terror. And not only that, they control very poorly and unsafely the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, while the IAEA leader Grossi comes there and basically bear hugs and kisses all the Russian representatives. Okay, so when I have all of that in my head, and then I sit down to do a stream with you, and my power goes off. I don't use this terminology often, but I just got pissed off.
Yeah.
And I start layering all these things on top of each other, and then we have to listen to, well, we're going to do this. Well, maybe we'll give permissions. Maybe we'll not give permissions. Okay, let them strike deeper. Are you kidding me? Guys, this is a war.
Yeah.
This is a war. Johnny, you've been to the front. This is a horrible, horrible, horrible war.
And Shoigu, as you mentioned, Shoigu today or yesterday said, we will not enter into negotiations because there's a lot of pressure about negotiations. So I wonder what's in that strategy with coming out the Biden administration. Olaf Scholz has been making moves towards wrapping this up with some kind of peace deal that may cede territory to Russia because he's feeling the pressure probably from the AfD, the far right pro-Russian contingent, and actually the far left, but they're much a smaller party. But so there's that. So you and Zelensky's talked about like maybe a peace plan. So you're hoping that Ukraine isn't being forced into a quick negotiation that will benefit Russia. But Shoigu has said we won't enter negotiations until the Ukrainians are out of our territory of Kursk. And you're like, you're in 20% of Ukraine, like you just said, like
okay. But
that's
Johnny,
ridiculous.
Okay, but let's be quite honest. Why does nobody talk about it? You and I are talking about it. I translated that video immediately and put it out, but mainstream media doesn't talk about it. They do not talk about the reality of the madness that is happening here inside Ukraine and the war with Russia. The terrorist nation that invaded a sovereign, peaceful nation. Nobody talks about that. I mean, to be quite honest, and it's
Yeah.
getting pretty frustrating. And I even went over some of the rumors, a couple of media outlets reporting about what Zelensky's thinking about, how they know what he's thinking. I don't know. I guess they're inside his dome somehow, but what he's thinking about for a fall negotiation in conjunction with the second peace talks, Russia invited, and talk about what could potentially we could look for negotiations. I got news for you. Forget Kyiv, forget Zelensky, forget Russia, forget America, forget Europe. I'm going to talk about Ukrainians right now. In 12 months, I've been on the front lines in this war or inside Ukraine. If you think right now that Ukrainians en masse will support a negotiated deal where they give away territory and soldiers are brought home off the front lines, there will be a revolution inside this country.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
these soldiers have lost thousands of their brothers and sisters, thousands, and they will not quit fighting. And if they are forced to lay down their arms in a negotiated deal where their brothers and sisters spilled their blood and it's given away, there will be a very, very strong response from Ukrainian people. I don't know what it would look like, but they will not stand for it.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It's really frustrating, as you say. I don't know. Should we let Prof. Gerdes be part of the conversation? Shall I send him out a link?
If he's available, get him in here.
I'll send him a link invite. I will just say that I'm going to present the other side of the story in a second, and then I guess we'll then get on to talking about the old Snatch Land Rovers. Let me just send the prof this. If you're around, matey, pop on.
He's in the chat. He can't do it.
Oh, he can't do it.
But he
okay.
can. He's in my chat. He can listen and type.
Yeah.
And tell us where we're wrong.
Yeah. Well, so what I was going to say, so the other side of the story is this, and we're talking about US anti-escalation thinking here. So this is what Frank and Frank may be saying this because I've talked about this, or no, not at all. I don't mean it like that. I mean, this is something I've discussed on my channel, and this is an interesting position. All this is so blatantly obvious. So what we're saying is it's obvious that they should do this. So the question is, like, if it's so obvious, why aren't they doing it, right? So then you would hope there's some rational reason for this. The only way to make sense of it is because they must be seriously worried about the nut job ending the planet. So we heard recently that they were genuinely afraid back in the Kharkiv counteroffensive that the Russians were actually going to use a tactical nuke. And the rumor is that the Chinese put some pressure on the Russians and it didn't happen. But there was and this is a rumor, and who knows how true it is, but there was supposedly genuine fear of an actual nuke use earlier on in the war. And if that's the case, so there is obviously a very good argument to suggest that we need to be overly cautious with regard to Russia, because if you are not overly cautious and a bit too risky, it's medium reward to a very high risk. So if you say, right, let's let Ukraine use whatever they want into Russia, and you say, okay, that's going to give some medium reward, but the risk of that is if it goes wrong, that's a nuclear war. And if it's a nuclear war, that is arguably the end of civilization as we know it. So the theory would go. And so on the one hand, this is about trying to double guess whether Russia really are saber rattling or whether they would ever actually press that button. Sorry, go for it.
So we then bow to a madman,
and that's the problem. Yeah, it's like, so then a nuclear power can just go and do whatever they like whenever they want.
Then if we want to talk about that, then let me tell you about ignorance. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Ignorance came out of Lloyd Austin's mouth. Then if we wanted to go with your narrative, which I'm not opposed to, If we want to go with that narrative, then Lloyd Austin made a big snafu. Lloyd Austin about 4 days ago says, "Listen, no, you can't strike. Our policy stays the same, deep into targeted with American supplied, and it's irrelevant." And even Blinken, Secretary of State, was saying, these weapons won't reach the ranges that they need to get to anyway. So it's kind of an irrelevant conversation. But Lloyd Austin purely said, he said, "Well, Ukraine has their own supply that can reach deep." Okay, then, sir, don't say that. That's a mistake. Because then, if Ukraine, in their hurried efforts to develop longer range weapons, which they are doing, makes a mistake, then whose fault is it? Is it the nation that has had to try to rebuild their army and fight with no supply and hurriedly design drones and long-range weapon systems and beg for anything? Is it their fault, or is it the European and the Americans who have the ability, the capability, the supply, and say, no, you can't do it? But Lloyd Austin will say, but you have your own long-range stuff, go for it, because if something happens and it does go wrong, and there is a mistake made, and they hit Kursk, or they strike a commercial airliner flying over Nukovo or Sheremetyevo or Domodedovo airport, and a commercial airliner is hit, and the next thing you know, we're at a tactical nuke potential at a higher possibility. Whose fault is it really? It's the West fault. It's the West fault.
Yeah. I know it is. I guess my point was,
it reminds me of Peter. I'm sorry. I'm ashamed of the West. And I'm an American bleeding red, white, and blue. You're a Brit bleeding red, white, and blue, or blue, white, and red, or whatever it would be there in the proper Queen's English with all the, however it is. But come on, man. We're the ones.
It's interesting. There seems to be a divide. So some nations, France has been taken out by its elections. So they were really strong. Then they had the elections, the European elections, and then snap elections, and then the Olympics. And they were being really strong. And now they're kind of absent for those kind of reasons. Germany's been hammered by its own elections. Who are being really strong? The Baltics, Sweden, giving out a double what the US gave in terms of military aid package, is really strong for a country that size. You've got the Nordic countries, you've got the Baltic nations, you've got Poland still being very strong. In fact, Poland seems to be having a big argument with Germany that's brewing at the moment. And so there's some nations. The UK is being strong, actually. We're just having a bit of a problem with having no money at the moment, but anyway, I suppose that's a problem for everyone. It just seems to be not everyone is unified and on the same page, and I guess it's also going to. I don't want to get into US politics, but November is going to be a pretty important time. My guess is that the US is being quiet on supporting Ukraine at the moment because they realise that it's so the Democrats. The point of view I have is that if the Democrats spent a load of money, even though it's already spent, and even though those packages are just book value of equipment and it's not that much money. So the last package of 250 million that went to Ukraine was a load of Bradleys that's free, they've already been paid for, and a load of these vehicles and those vehicles, they're already done and dusted. So actually it's not that much. You're not sending that much cash to Ukraine. But nonetheless, if the US gave like $1 billion aid package right now, then in the election cycle that we're in, that would go down really badly with people they're trying to attract to vote for them from the Republicans or the centrists and the independents. And they're saying, why are you spending this money on Ukraine when it should be on X, Y, and Z? The same old arguments, but it's just the timing is really terrible. Because I think they would be spending much bigger amounts of that aid package if it wasn't 2 months before an election. But
let me say something here. Thomas Peterson, I'm trying to read my chat over here on the left. I'm cool with that. Don't blame Europe for the no long strike problem. That's an all Yankee problem. I'll take that blame right here.
Yeah,
I'm a Yankee, and I'm also, so no problem there. I do wish.
Yeah, because the Dutch are another one who have come out and said we're fine with shooting fire.
Correct. It's a Yankee problem. I'll stand with that. No problem. I would hope that Europe could come together and exert more pressure on the states somehow, unified. But I will tell you right now, um, the guys that are on my channel, for my channel, know that I've hammered this for over 18 months now, and that was Peter Pavel. He told the world that by November 2024, we would have a clear direction on how this war will go.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
man is looking to be a prophet Nostradamus. He even openly stated about economies, European elections, and
Yeah.
most importantly, the American election. And when it comes to the end of summer and the early fall election season in the United States, you will then have to take Ukraine off the table, because both parties will do what is necessary for them to get elected, and they will play the game, they will dance the tunes, and they will try to
Yeah.
get past that election.
Yeah.
And you know,
Yeah,
right
it is.
now
I agree. It's
we're
all about
witnessing that.
November the 5th. Yeah, yeah. And so my hope, and I know I'm going to put my partisan hat on here, but my hope is that Democrats get in, and November the 5th, after that, it's all like, right, okay, now we go and we give a load of stuff. If the Republicans get in, you will probably get that after November, because they'll be spending the rest of the appropriations money bill before the inauguration in January. So that you're probably, either way, you're going to get a bunch of money spent, I think, between November and January by the Americans. But then what happens after January really is the thing.
Well, Darren Vaughn making a good comment there. This election is paralyzing America.
Yeah.
That is Mitch Ashdown. Why be the top military power and not use it when it's prudent? I believe that's because many times those that have responsibility, whether it be Americans or other nations, don't realize the responsibility that they have when they've been inundated with propaganda for decades and decades and decades. It's washed out. And you know, I will say this.
I think it's more to do with the divisiveness of the election, about like they don't.
Well, you can't say that, because it would have been before the election.
Yeah,
you
I
can't
think
say it's just about the election. This should have never happened.
Yeah, yeah. Like before that, they could have been more done and go stronger. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. But I think right now it is like, I think they're just not talk. That it's like Ukraine, just stay down there. Nobody talk about Ukraine type thing, and which is why it isn't featuring on either party's campaign trail. I like the Democrats do mention it, and they when they talk about foreign policy, they do mention it. It is a big thing for Democrats, but they don't go into like huge detail about it. It's just like, you know, I am quite happy with Senator Mark Kelly was indicating that they would do things slightly different, the only thing you could do differently is allow them to shoot into Russia. You know, there's only so much, you know, if you're going to say we'd be broadly the same in kind of in rhetorically in how we're going to support Ukraine, but there would be some changes. That's all I can think of.
So that would then include that delays in support and months and months and months where support is very limited will then happen, and then we'll come with a larger package, and then we'll be silent for 4 or 5 months. So that pattern will just continue.
I don't know. I mean, that is frustrating.
Just a question.
But then you could say that main like 4 or 5 months. I mean, the 7 months was an impasse in Congress, which was, I think, slightly different from how it would normally be. What is interesting though, Greg, is that although there is a lot to be said about politically where different nations are and elections, etc., some things have happened that are militarily, industrially beneficial for Ukraine that aren't sort of things you can turn off and on. So the US has ramped up their artillery ammunition production phenomenally, right? So they were at 14,000 shells a month. They're now up to is it 50,000 at the moment, and they will be at 80,000 ahead of schedule. So they are looking at like having really successfully done that. Europe has also done that. It's a bit slower than the Americans, but they've ramped up production. And yep.
But a lot of that is for their personal supply, because they're depleted so much, because they are concerned, because the world has been so silent on Ukraine that we could be looking at an escalation with NATO, because America has done a poor job in safeguarding and being the leadership that is required in the world, and NATO, and standing for what is right. Therefore, we've depleted our supplies, and we've got to refill our own pantries.
Yeah, so that's definitely an element of it. There's no doubt. I would say it's both. Like they are both able to do that.
I agree. And unfortunately, I have to agree completely with Professor Gertis here, and I think you will too. It's on my channel. Up a few comments there, Johnny. The Dems would be better off with a huge Ukrainian win, where they could show substantial progress.
Yes,
I agree with that 1,000,000%.
yes, I think so. And part of the problem is that they didn't do enough big enough stuff earlier on, where they could really show the success out. And it's been so protracted that actually, in order to show that now, they'd have to pile an absolute ton in right now. And right now is election time, and it's not that should have been done before, and that is a big criticism. So
Okay,
yeah, it's a tough one.
Let's play a game. You ready?
Yeah.
I'm going to make a statement, and I want to know if Johnny Pearce agrees with me. Ready? If Donald Trump is elected, he will be the destruction of global relations and be a very poor defender of Ukraine.
I absolutely agree with that. I 100% agree with that.
And Johnny, so do I.
And that's where we agree. So at the moment, the Democrats are the best option, but they're still suboptimal. And that's our complaints are they're just not doing enough. Donald Trump is hugely problematic. I've got some videos in my geopolitical video I'm going to do later, going as an interview with him in 2013, where he's waxing lyrical about Putin, and you're like, he hasn't changed. That's what what a beautifully meaningful adornment to your head there.
Well, I'm thinking that we now need maybe Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker to come help.
Well, unfortunately, James Earl Jones has passed away in the last 24
James
hours.
Earl Jones did pass away.
So I thought that was in honor of him. Personally, I tell you, I've got this for those Star Wars geeks out there. You will appreciate this. For other people who don't know Star Wars that well and the memes around Star Wars, you'll be like, what? Ukraine can win this war by dressing up their entire army, by making sure that the Russians, if they get consignment of weapons to the Russians that are Imperial blasters for the stormtroopers, just give the Russians all these Imperial blasters, and even give them stormtrooper uniform and armor. And then if the Russians just run around the fronts dressed as stormtroopers, thinking they're well protected with these amazing laser blasters, they'll find that they'll miss the Ukrainians the whole time, because famously stormtroopers can never hit.
This is this is actually Pete's helmet.
Is it?
Yes, that he did some videos in, and it was given to me as a gift. So I try to pop it on.
That's an amazing gift. That is amazing.
I try to pop it on every once in a while. Well, Johnny, this I think people that are watching on my channel and your channel, I think they see where we agree, and where we realize that even across party lines, there are certain standard things that must happen for the support of Ukraine,
and aren't happening.
And they're not happening. So I appreciate that. I would like to I would like to talk about one thing and then get your opinion on it. Okay, so of course, being in Ukraine, a lot of times I catch the news earlier because I'm actually here. And so I was up early, and I made a video this morning and put it out about the drone swarm that attacked Russia. 144 drones, and
according to the Russians, possibly maybe 3 times as many. Who knows?
Maybe, but we'll just go with that number. Regardless, we have the proof of what happened.
Yeah, we
have the terror, and that I was watching a lot of Russian videos, and I could hear the terror. And I'm not believe me, I'm not trying to cause terror, but I heard in their voices what I've heard so many times in Ukrainian voices when I'm watching videos, and the tears, and the explosion happens, and these civilians are feeling a little bit about what the Kremlin and Putin and the Russian military is doing against Ukrainians 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I put the video out. I explained it. I showed the 7 or 8 different places where the strikes took place, the airports. I just gave an update, and then I showed Shoigu's trashy comments. And I was surprised at some of the comments I received early on, and like multiple comments where people stated, okay, this is devastating for Ukraine. So it's okay for Ukraine now to fly their drones into civilian buildings. This is going to be the death of Ukraine, hitting civilian targets. And I'm like going, okay.
My
Hang
first
on a
answer.
second. These
Yeah.
no, my stance is going to be the same as yours. These are massive buildings. Ukraine is trying to hit long range targets, and unless you've been to Moscow, which I have many times, it's hard to explain. There's skyscrapers and high rise buildings everywhere, and you're trying to fly these low altitude drones in when they're approaching and hit targets. Of course, things are going to happen, but then to put the onus and the blame on Ukraine when Ukraine has been living with this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, soon to be early next year, 3 years. To me, it's just a little bit unfair in the comments. It's
There are two ways to look at this. One, it's very clear to me that any ordnance that finds its way into civilian infrastructure in Russia is not designed to go there. It's clearly not the case, right? They have scarce resources. Ukrainians have scarce resources, and they will not be saying, do you know what we should do with this drone that we're sending all the way to Moscow? When it gets however many hundreds of kilometers to Moscow, we want it to just go into this random apartment block and kill a 9-year-old girl. That's really what we want. So scarce resources, they're not going to be doing that. They are. We've seen previously that they really tried to hit military or infrastructurally important targets, right? And also, as part of that same argument, they are always considering what the international response will be to anything they do. And if they're going to start hitting, just like you're saying, the reactions to people on the ground are that they can't do, that's horrible. Yeah, so they're not going to be doing that on purpose. The only reason those drones have hit those buildings is because electronic warfare has hit them or air defense has hit them out of the way or whatever.
Great point there, actually. I'm just, your point there I completely agree with. Just due to the scarcity of supply, Ukraine's not going to be flying drones long range that can do serious damage into an apartment building. It is
in
a
Moscow.
war in Moscow. Okay.
Yeah.
Secondly, you cannot underestimate the power of electronic warfare.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I will tell you guys right now on my channel and on Johnny's that from firsthand experience, when Jane and I are on these front lines, and we soon will be returning here in the next couple of days, we can personally tell, doing these aid runs the entire war, the level of electronic warfare against the ability to communicate, cellular activity.
I was with you
increased.
in Kharkiv, when the GPS, we walked out of a tea room, and Jenny was like, come over here. It says we're here, and that's in the middle of the forest over there, and actually we're in the middle of Kharkiv. And that's
Correct.
Because our GPS has been spammed by electronic warfare. So yeah, 100%.
And Johnny, so you witnessed that when you were here. It's so many times worse. It's like crazy what is happening on the electronic front. So you just think about that with all the jamming, just put it all together logically. Ukraine, if they wanted to attack civilian targets, they could demolish Belgorod.
I was just going to say that, yeah. So they wouldn't be flying a drone to Moscow to hit. They'll be,
they would level Belgorod.
Yeah.
It's close to the border, just north of Kharkiv.
Yeah.
That's not their intention. Their intention is to fight a fair, military targeted, oriented war, and to garner international support led by the United States and European nations of affluence to help them stand for righteousness and defend their sovereign territory. That's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, and the flip side to that is that sometimes Russia isn't throwing their missiles and drones into civilian buildings in Ukraine. Quite often they are taken out by electronic warfare or air defense. That is part of the issue. But if you're going to invade into a country and then throw missiles at them, you're going to have to try and stop those missiles, and that's what will happen. So when Ukraine are doing that back to Russia and they fly into apartment buildings in Moscow, the buck stops, I'm afraid, with Russia. It's like that would
Correct.
never be happening had Russia not invaded. So this is something we need to do. Russia have successfully defended against our drones from hitting the military target, and they've slammed into an apartment block. I think one of the videos showed a drone spinning, so it's definitely been like messed around with. And we're sorry that hit those civilians, and that is part of war. But unfortunately, if you are going to attack us and invade us and do this to us, then that's the outcome that you can expect.
Completely agree. Sorry, it's a war, and you punched first.
Yeah. And the other thing to also consider, because I often wonder about the effect on the population when you do things like this. We could get onto philosophy and whether consequentialist ethics here holds. So consequentialism is that the consequence of an action is what obtains its moral value. So for example, if you look at something like the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombs, you like what the US did there was morally quite horrific, but it can be calculated to be morally good. So, and imagine doing that now. Imagine Ukraine dropping an atomic bomb on Moscow to stop the war. I mean, that's basically what the US did with Japan. And it was like, okay, there's 100,000 civilians wiped out like that. Okay, but the moral calculation there was an evil for a greater good. So this then, we hope, will stop, say, I don't know, 5 million people dying in a war that's extended for 10 years. So we do this bomb, that bomb, and then also the fire bombing of Tokyo and all these other quite horrific things that the Americans did. But it stopped the war. And so you can make an argument that that was morally good, because you're judging it by the outcome. So let's take that back to Moscow, and if you are terrorizing Muscovites, if you were doing it on purpose, I don't think they're doing that on purpose, but if that's a ramification of these activities, then it could be that then gets the Muscovites really, really upset about that. And the question is, which way do they go? Does that unify them so that they rally around a flag and support Putin more in the war effort? Or does it scare them and say, war has come to us, well, I don't like it, why are we invading Ukraine if this is what happens 2.5 years later? And I don't know which way that will go, but those are the two kind of broad options.
May I suggest something just to add to your thinking? And I want to one of my moderators here, such a key supporter of mine, Duncan U23 with the $20 super chat and gifting 10 memberships in between meetings in the US, hopped on just to say hello. So thank you, Dunk. Listen, when you are waxing eloquent in the future, okay, and you are thinking, and and I'm not joking, guys, I love Johnny Pearce. And when you go to war with somebody, you become brothers, and we went to war together. I'll never forget you sitting in Kherson with your helmet and body armor on.
Yeah. I'm still doing my third video.
I'm not joking right now. I'm very serious. I love Johnny Pearce, and we went to war together. But seriously, when you're doing that level of thinking and your analysis in the future, I would suggest that in addition to trying to figure out the morality behind it and the consequences of that morality, I would suggest to you to add one layer of thought to your process. And that is this: we do not live in 1945. Okay? That bomb was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and the world never knew it happened. It took days for that information to happen. Now we have social media.
Yeah.
And the moment somebody hears a sound, I'm in Ukraine, the moment they hear some odd sound, Telegram is full of it. Yeah. Oh, shaheeds in our city, shaheeds in our city. And then you take that and you multiply that with the power of social media. And then that information can be adjusted and changed and manipulated and AI can be done. Deep fakes can be done. All of this that we now have to layer in. You can't deep fake the Enola Gay, okay?
Yeah.
And the stock footage that went with it. But now we live in a world, due to manipulation, due to propaganda, due to technology, due to the information moving at the speed of light, that it's hard now to compare these two eras as apples and apples. The reality is, I don't think we, as a world and a global society, and this has nothing to do with politics, nothing to do with religious background, nothing to do with anything other than just pure logic. I don't think we have completely understood the power that media, social media, timing, deep fakes, propaganda plays into us trying to understand morality, because everything can be manipulated quickly now and we never know what to trust.
Yeah, I mean, goodness me, like Greg, I bang on about this every single day, and I call it. There's a term you can talk about national security, you can talk about cyber security. There's a term in philosophy called epistemology, study of knowledge and truth. Epistemic security is where we're at, which is we are not secure anymore of what is right, what is wrong, what is information, what is disinformation and misinformation, and that is being manipulated, particularly by Russia, by getting us to doubt everything, and out of that chaos can emerge the Russian objectives and so on and so forth. And this is definitely a challenge to us all. It's one of the biggest challenges because it's so abstract as well. It's not like a tank rolling over your border. This is messing with my idea of what I know and what I don't know, and that's a head mess.
It is, but we just need, when we're trying to share information and calculate and understand, it's just much more complex now, and we all need to do our best to share. Um, I have a saying that's in regard even to the way we were given the honor from Pete's mom and family to facilitate his funeral here. And we did it one time and we did it right. It took days and days and days and days and days. And the same thing with these armored vehicles taking months. We do it one time and we do it right. And I would like, also, I would love it if we lived in a world where, whether it's us as guys on YouTube trying to share and help people understand, give different perspectives, but show our unity and our different perspectives, to mainstream media, to politics, to international relations. If the whole world could somehow just, like, back down one gear, where we could actually process what we're doing and think about it and then evaluate our next steps forward, I think we'd be in a much better place, to be quite honest.
Roy, on your channel said too much hysteria over mis and disinformation. I can't disagree more, I have to say, with all due respect.
Oh, nor can I.
If that is what Roy is saying, like, you can't have enough hysteria over being attacked with disinformation. Like, when your whole understanding of how reality works, there's nothing more discombobulating than that. Like, it just, if I think the world is flat and it's actually a sphere, then, like, I'm fundamentally flawed in my approach to what reality is. And there are places on the internet where I can go and find the facts to suit my sense of reality. So I think fighting for what is good and right and accurate in this world of chaos is so damned important. That's why I spend my days doing what I do. I wanted to show you this video.
Completely agree.
Get your thoughts on this, because you will have an understanding of this more so than myself. But
okay,
hopefully you can hear this. These are two Russian soldiers that are being kind of almost tormented by a drone. In the end, the drone explodes near them, and it doesn't kill them or injure them, as far as I can work out. But I'll stop it before then anyway. But it's the sound of the drone that gets me. Hopefully you can hear this, guys. If it works, no doubt it's not going to work anymore. Let me just refresh that video. Here we go. Okay. So these guys are on an ATV. Can you hear that, first of all?
Yes, sir, I can.
Okay.
And there's sound on YouTube. I can confirm that.
Yeah, good. So start listening for that high-speed, high-pitched mosquito.
Автомат! Стреляй! Автоматическим. Автоматическим стреляй.
And there you go, and it actually explodes next to them, and they're fine, and they run away. But it's that sound, that mosquito sound of the drone, and watching that thing go. I've seen so many videos of people just kind of either throwing sticks or giving up or whatever. Just the PTSD that the soldiers on both sides are going to be experiencing after this war is over, if they survive and they hear that kind of sound, there must be such a psychological impact on these people with the sound of that drone. And just you'd be in that situation where you just think it's over. There's no way I can get away from this drone. It's circling around me. It's going to kill me.
Well, that is 100% accurate. I can remember many times, Peter, and then I could ask 1,000 soldiers on the front who hear that, and it is life-changing, of course. I will also tell you, if you want to take it a step further, how many millions of Ukrainians, from the very young children to older seniors, that have listened to the sound of shaheeds flying above their heads, like a moped in the air.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something, brother. I've heard them plenty.
Yeah.
It will rattle you to your soul when you hear it, because you know that thing can bring some serious devastation. And it's right there. It's not miles in the air or whatever. It's just like that little that looks like a DJI Mavic is there. And I'll tell you, it's going to be a challenge. Yesterday when I was in the military hospital here in Khmelnytsky with all the guys with all their leg surgeries, I was there with chief medic whom I've known for, I think we determined it was 16 years. It's a lady. She's served 3 tours on the front, on the zero. 3 tours, 3-month tours. And she's 56 years old. So you guys think about this. If you're watching right now, and let's say, let's say you're in your mid 30s, that's your mother's age. Think about this. 3 months, or 3-month tours. She's now running or supporting this rehab hospital here. But Zhenya and I were taking her, and I've known her for a long time, and she was talking out of her head like crazy as we were going in the hospital. And Zhenya didn't want to say it because we were all speaking Russian language together, because I can speak Russian. So we're all speaking Russian together. And Zhenya didn't want to say it, and didn't want to say it in English because it's basically the same thing in Russian or Ukrainian. He typed it in his phone. He says, "You see the PTSD?" I said, "Brother, are you serious? This is Svetlana, Mama Sveta." He goes, "Man, she's destroyed."
Yeah.
9 months on the zero. So just start, that's the sound of war. I would take it even a step further. The smell of war. I would take it a step further. The sight of war.
Yeah, there'll be so many triggers.
Man, in the city where I live here, which is my home base, it's public information, Khmelnytsky. So many times we've been hit here. This very, very important city. There's no operational security there. It's obvious, and the world knows it. Very important city. And this place has been hit so many times in certain places. And I'm talking large caliber cruise missiles. Yeah, you're going straight to it there. And I've seen it myself multiple times. The massive plumes of smoke that have at the beginning of them, they have the large mushroom type cloud when there's a direct hit. And yeah, that's it. That's my city there. It's where I'm at right now. But I then begin to think about the children, going to school, and they look up and they see this huge cloud of, you can see it from all over the city. I mean, it's obvious. Your whole city was just rattled with a missile strike, and then there's a big mushroom cloud plume of smoke because it hit its target. Um, but man, for sure, that sound for these soldiers on the front of the drones is,
Yeah, it's horrible.
it's unbelievable.
Question for you. I don't really. I assume this is just pure nonsense, as in not what MDAO says per se, but the idea that, is it true that Putin's going to get arrested as seen on the internet? I've not seen that, but the only chance of Putin getting arrested is if he goes to a Rome Statute signatory country. That those are countries that are signed up to the institute for the International Criminal Court's Rome statute, that means that they're obliged to arrest Putin if he comes to their country because there's an arrest warrant on his head. Now he's just
worked out well in Mongolia.
Yeah, he's just been to Mongolia, and they didn't do that, and they said it's because basically that they had leverage over energy over them, and they were quite.
Then the agreement is invalid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So guys, what happens to Mongolia? Yeah.
We can't have this both ways.
Yeah.
We either have international law
or not.
We don't.
Yeah, it's that simple.
Okay. I just came by the Red Cross place here in Khmelnytsky, and I can reconfirm that the 30 brand new Land Cruisers are still sitting there as of yesterday. They've never driven a meter. And all they're doing is sucking money from the world. So that international organization is irrelevant. I can tell you that the International Atomic Energy Agency, led by Grossi, is irrelevant, because we will basically have a love affair with the invaders at Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, and while we allow Shoigu to scream about Kursk. So that's invalid. I have personally witnessed here, as well as I'm sure people have in other places, the absolute impotence of the United Nations, which during this war, where a nation is wreaking terror and killing civilians on a daily basis here in Ukraine, we allow the invading nation on their turn to be the president of the Security Council. So they are invalid. Therefore, if we do not have international law in such large organizations as the ICC, the United Nations, and humanitarian organizations such as Red Cross, then I would submit that we have a much deeper problem than we realize.
Yeah, and yes, yeah. Agree. Nothing I disagree with there. So, Greg,
sorry, I didn't answer the question. Putin will never be arrested
unless he goes to somewhere like the UK, and we get all like that.
But he won't.
Of course, he won't. He won't. So he'll go to countries where he knows he won't be arrested.
Brother, he will do the Hitler thing before he's arrested.
Yeah,
it's easy. Putin will never be arrested. He will be gone before he's arrested.
Yeah. Right. Greg, do you want to give us an update on, because I have failed to give any substantial updates on what's been going on with regard to the Land Rover snatchers? So can you explain what they are and what you have been doing with all the fundraising monies that predominantly yourself and your audience have done, but Prof. Curtis as well, my audience as well, and others.
Thank you, Johnny. This was the brainchild of Peter Fouché, who sacrificed his life on the front for Ukraine. I actually had the original video where he's...
and let's add you back into the stage. Sorry. Yeah. So start that again.
This was the vision and dream of Peter Fouché, the South African Brit combat medic who served so faithfully and went viral with the statements. There you go, Project Konstantin.
I drank out of this. I had some Lamb's Pusser's Navy rum that on my tribute to him, the video I did. I had some rum out of the canister. This is a grenade canister that he gave us in that restaurant. Do you remember we met? It's the first time you met him actually, and you guys were locking heads together, speaking in tongues, and yeah. So anyway, carry on.
So his baby, and then Professor Gertis came up. He says, "Man, I just know there's pent up demand for people wanting to help in a big way, and let's find something to do." And we started just small. Then we adopted the Third Assault Third Assault Brigade Second Rifle Battalion. We dropped about $54,000 of aid on them. Plus, we then delivered 28 drones to them. That was a part of your effort and initiative as well there at ATP Geopolitics. And then we just took it. We had a donor in California and one in the northern part of the U.S. That one messaged Professor Gertis and one messaged me and said, "Listen, let's do something big." And so we said, okay, we're going to go for a couple of armored medical vehicles, armored Cossavacs, that Peter is asking for. And these, I'm going to do a NAFO truck after we finish Project 22. I know Professor Gertis, I'm not speaking for him, but I know he as well wants to. Maybe we'll just co-op on it. I know you, because NAFO is such a good organization providing vehicles to the front, and I can absolutely pay witness that they are there and they do an amazing job. But these are not your standard vehicles. These are military vehicles that we're delivering. So the process was quite different. And it took months and months, but we raised it turned out to be about a $300,000 project. Every penny is raised. That $300,000 includes the purchase of the 4 vehicles, the import or the export out of the UK, the transit through Europe, via ship and then onto truck and delivered to us personally there in Lviv. That has happened. People have seen it. They've seen the video. In addition to that, then our modifications, which are happening right this second as I speak, the installation of the heavy duty winches, so the guys on the front can get their own selves out of trouble, especially as the weather gets worse. And they said, man, if we can have a winch on them, it would be great. And then, of course, we are going with the latest drone jammers. And last I've heard, they're going to be 7 channels. And they are also not generic. So the 4 drop places for these armored vehicles, for example, if a group is fighting, let's say south of Orikhiv on the southern front, and then there's a group fighting, let's just call another famous place, Chasiv Yar, okay, or Kharkiv, Volchansk, doesn't matter. These groups will have different frequencies of drone jammers that they need because Russia is constantly changing the frequencies of the drones they use, and they do it on purpose. So we are literally at the last second asking the guys in the different areas, and I'm not giving the drop points away, what frequencies of drone jammers do you prefer? And it's up to the last second. Our guys that are changing the frequencies will literally make those adjustments when we pull out of town. So when we deliver them, they will have the exact frequencies of drone jammers that is what they need for right now. Then they can be adjusted. These are very, very high-end drone jammers. Also, the night vision. These have the full body armor from top to bottom, even the undersides, the fuel, all of that. Plus, they are Kevlar reinforced on the on the medical portion. They have the air condition. I mean, I hate to use this word, but they're the Cadillacs, and it's just unbelievable how the world came together. So in all, we will deliver it to them with medical supplies. Additionally to that, we will provide them with additional filters, air filters, fuel filters, all the things that they need to change. And when they are out running these dusty roads until old man winter sets in and the rainy season comes, there's so much dust. I can't even describe it to you. Maybe on this run, I'll do some dust video and let everybody see how dusty it is, because right now, Ukraine is in dire need of rain. And I don't want to change topics. I'll come back to that. But it's It's horrible how
Well,
dry it
actually, no,
is.
it might be interesting because it pertains to the use of these vehicles. So, what this used to be known as a giant dust bowl down here
Mhm.
before it was irrigated by water that came off the dammed Dnipro River, and the destruction of the Kakhovka Dam has meant that irrigation to this whole, like the farming area around here, might be non-existent, and therefore this could become an environmental disaster where this
Okay,
becomes a
so
dust bowl again.
okay, so let me, if you will zoom into that area, let me help folks understand that a little bit better, and I'll get back to the trucks. So Johnny, go left for me. Go left for me.
Yeah,
So, yep, that's cool. And I just want people to understand. So, there's the Ingalets River coming down. So right there. No, now I want you to go to the green. Everything, just leave your map right there. Stay right there. I run all those roads, all of them. And everywhere you see in the green, guys, and you would say, well, that's north of Dnipro. Yes, it is north of Dnipro. It's a barren, dry, desert-like environment right now. All the farmers, I've been to the farmers, they have no crops. Everything is, they're calling it a cherry crop because even their potatoes are the size of cherry tomatoes. There's no crops. All the rivers are dried up. All the lakes are dried up. And one may ask, okay, well, why are they dried up there? That's above. Correct. It is
but it
above. Everything is drained out.
yeah, the irrigation used to go there. Would say I had a map once that had showed all the irrigation channels from before the Kakhovka Dam was blown up, and yeah, it's equally as pertinent for this area of Kherson as well.
And so the everything we're sharing now, 100% truth. My feed have been there. In fact, I just did a video about a week ago on the environmental conditions down there. It's a drought. So that is why right now there are massive fires happening in different
Mm,
regions of Ukraine. Massive. And it's not, folks, just because some ordinance went off and it lit a fire. Right now, these fires are raging. Of course, it can be as a result of a munition, but it can also be naturally being caused. A
mm,
campfire went wrong, somebody cooking something where they shouldn't have. Right now, there are massive fires raging in multiple regions throughout Ukraine, on the north, on the east, and in the south. So right now, Ukraine is in desperate need of rain. Now, pushing that back to the armored vehicles, right now, the roads are, it's like driving through sand, and the dust and is so bad. So we are providing with the armored vehicles new filters, air filters and fuel filters. So when it's time for them to make a change, they're not trying to find these things. They're
mm,
already going to have them.
mm.
We're trying to think ahead for
Proactive,
these
yeah.
guys. Yes, we're being proactive. Um, so I can tell you that we're in the last phases right now. Vehicles are being monogrammed, or whatever you call it. The stenciling and inscriptions done. That's all being done. The winches, they're being installed this second. Um, we've already done all the testing, all the off-road, all the engine testing. Everything is fantastic. K Bell saying it's rained one day since I've been here since the beginning of August. That's correct, K Bell. I think you're over there in Western Ukraine. It's horribly dry, horribly dry. Um, and then of course we will deliver these. We will deliver them only hand to hand directly to the unit on the front. And you guys, Susan, I'll answer your question in 1 second. We will then hand the keys over. You will see that on video. They will be, of course, full of fuel. And I can also tell you that in one of the locations that we are going, I will actually get in the vehicle and do a medical extraction run with the guys. Um,
Wow,
well,
scary.
they wanted me to 10 days ago, and I was down there. We were finishing up the documents, and we listen. You just don't drop these vehicles, guys. A lot of people, to be honest, got a little upset with me, or were maybe disappointed it didn't happen in 6 weeks, and and it's okay. They just don't understand the process. This is not just a $15,000 truck.
So
This is
yeah,
a
and
medical. This is an
just
army.
but
It's
also in
massive.
terms of bureaucracy. So I know this by trying to sort out a NAFO truck, and it's JR really that's doing the lines work here, and it's a bit of a nightmare because actually you would think you would just say to like a unit, "Oh, do you want a NAFO truck?" And they go, "Yeah, of course we do." And then like, "Go on then, deliver it, and we'll just drive it." I mean, it's a war zone. Who cares? But it's no, they have to get written permission from their bosses, and then they have to, all this kind of paperwork has to be done, and then that has to be applied to NAFO, and then NAFO have to. And you're like, really? Wow, it's absolutely incredible.
It's the Soviet bureaucracy that Ukraine is breaking free from. I tell it straight, guys. It's the Soviet bureaucracy that Ukraine is breaking free from, and we need to help them break free from it. They want to. But
so
now
they knew.
you take that to an armored military vehicle. Holy moly! We've had to meet with brigade commanders, battalion commanders, and it's crazy. But anyway, in that meeting 10 days ago, we were down there, whatever it was, 10 days ago, and Vitaly, where I'm dropping one of them, and I don't mind calling his name. He wants to be public. He says, "Greg, we got to go get a guy right now. He's got 2 broken legs, and he's been trying to be extracted for 4 days. We got an opportunity. Come on and ride with us." And I was going to go. But then I thought to myself, okay, they're going to extract in a non-armored Kosovac. I think I will wait for my Kosovac, and that is armored. So I said, Vitaly, okay, maybe it'll be better that I take a run with you when I come back with your vehicle. Oh, great. That's a great idea. So that's it. I'm going, I think that's a better idea. So now, are these Kosovacs refurbished or new? These are refurbished, but they are Toyota Land Cruiser Defenders.
No, they're Land
Rover. Thank you. Land Rover Defenders, the 110 chassis, nicknamed the Snatches. These are the versions 2A that had the 2005 and 2006 retrofit, where they were modified and upgraded. All of these have had those upgrades. In addition to that, I can tell you that these 4 vehicles, the one that has the most mileage on it, what would you call that in kilometerage with kilometers?
So kilometers, what is it? About 1.6 kilometers to a mile?
No. Like
kilometer. I don't know.
Okay. So the one that has the most mileage or kilometerage or whatever has 17,000 kilometers on it.
Which is not a lot.
It's nothing. And the others have like 11, 12, and 13. That's it right there.
So this is one that is previous, from Tanks a Lot, which is actually where you got these from.
Tanks a Lot from the UK company. Tanks a Lot. That's exactly what it looks like.
So and but the one that you've got is armored, and they look really swish. Actually, they've done a really good job from what I've seen.
They're amazing, and they're amazing delivered. I can't say enough good things about Tanks a Lot and Nick.
Did they? Oh, that's really good.
They are who they say they are, and they delivered what they said they would deliver. I can say nothing but kudos for the export company. We were working with David. He did a phenomenal job. He did what he said he would do, and it was accomplished. Now we are doing what we said we would do. We will now. The old show there in the U.S. that was famous was called Pimp My Ride. And we are pimping out these Kosovacs to be the best. We're taking great vehicles and making them greater, and making them safer, and making them have greater ability to do their job and to support the soldiers and to save lives. Because that's what this is all about, is saving lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's fabulous. And so you are presently just making sure they are done up. Have you got any images of the ones that you've got to show you just how much nicer they look than some of these other ones?
If I had power, I was going to show you video and photos and everything. I'm still sitting here in the dark.
Can I show you the video? I showed this to my peeps the other day.
Please show whatever you want to show.
So let's just find it. There it is. I'm going to bring that up to there.
Johnny.
Right. Okay. Right, here goes. You can see that, right? So
yes. I'm going to have to move the stream later in the day, or we can reschedule and go for tomorrow. You can see what I'm with the guys now with all the vehicles.
Look how shiny
and some of the projects we're doing is taking longer than I expected. So you can see your labors here, man. 4 of these bad boys. So
there you go.
I'll get that image off, please. Okay. Hey, let me tell you one of the coolest things. The coolest things is the engines are amazing, and I love driving them.
Really?
And oh my, I'm having such a blast. I do a lot of right-hand driving when I'm in Africa.
They're good old Land Rover Defenders, right? Which
Man,
like
and
used to be the workhorse of farms.
When you go down the road, the people are just looking and so happy, and you know, they'll wave and all of this and waving back, and you go past the block post and they just salute you. They're not stopping you. It's just awesome. The engines are amazing. When that turbo kicks in, it just makes you want to sing. It's
really
that whistle. Oh yeah, they're awesome. But I will tell you one of the coolest things on that video. You saw these lights that are mounted on the top. Okay?
Right.
They are searchlights for search and rescue. So yeah, right there, just the little light right there. It's actually a big light. So how that works is that is a remote control searchlight that's like a long throw beam. And when you pull up to a location, if for some reason you needed some light really quickly, the driver or the passenger has the controls of that light. You can flip it on, you can dim it, or you can make it, you know, full strength, whatever you want. And then there's a joystick where you move it and rotate it around left and right and move it up and down. So let's say, you know, you're at a safe place doing an evacuation, but the guys just need some extra light. Of course, the driver never leaves his seat, so he's ready to go. And he just controls that light, shoots it down where the guys are trying to do some work, and everything is just, I mean, it's good, man. It's good.
Brilliant. Good stuff. Well, that's really good news. And hopefully, you know, when you get some footage of doing that, you're going to be delivering them. I presume you're not going to be delivering all of them, because I presume, correct me if I'm wrong, but the 4 are going to different places. Is that right?
We are delivering all of them.
As in personally, so are you doing one after another, or are you going all 4 to one, then drop one, and then sort of
for operational security?
Yeah.
Who knows? We are delivering all of them.
Yeah. There you go. Excellent. Well, that's really
to be quite honest. And I received so many just wonderful caring comments saying, you know, be safe. Now you're not driving around in your Navarro, you're driving around in a military vehicle, so please be careful. The reality is, you know, when you have a convoy like that, like we move their parking, they're hidden. Even here in Khmelnytsky, we really are. We're not playing any games with these. So
yeah,
secure, hidden, zero information. But yes, me and my team will be delivering all of them.
Yeah.
In fact, I can tell you, Rick, the Ukrainian, will be assisting me on
nice.
and working with us on a delivery or 2.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yes. I just want to take a bit of a moment to thank a bunch of people. So this is Goose Princeton, one of yours. So glad to catch a live stream. But thank you both for what you do, especially JP for putting up with my rambling contrarian comments. My life has been dealing with rambling contrarian comments, and actually more often not rambling, very, very precise contrarian comments quite often. Petra Olsen, some Swedish love for you, Greg. So that's really cool.
That would be the Swedish non-smoking initiative.
Yes, I remember. Ukraine. So all the smoking money that would have been now to Ukraine. So that's excellent. Haji giving 5 Greg Terry Experience memberships. I once worked on a building site in Queenstown in New Zealand with a guy called Haji from Iraq. He was a Christian asylum seeker, I think, and there was me, an atheist backpacker working on a building site. I lived with him actually. Anyway, that's a whole other story to go into on another day. Goose Springsteen again. To what extent will lifting restrictions hurt the Russian Air Force now? Russia has reportedly already moved many planes out of the ATACMS range. Well, yeah, but there are still 10% of them supposedly there, so that's what you can hit. There are other things that you can hit within that range, but yeah, the horse has already bolted, unfortunately. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No, it's
No.
Yeah.
It's just a shame. Yeah, like it should have happened without really announcing it. Jenny, thank you so much. This is for you as well. Another £10 from the Saved Elect for Gauzes.
Understood, Jenny. Thank you.
That obviously makes sense to you.
Yes, and I have an email for Jenny that's coming. She wants to help with gauze, which is a big need. So thank you for the. And it's proper to say the 10. It's proper to say 10 quid, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that you've corrected me there. I was trying to be all proper. Kevin Forst gifted 10 ATP Geopolitics memberships. Thanks, Kevin. Really appreciate your support. You're a legend in your own underwear. This is true. Johnny Nedregard, some Norwegian love for you there. Greg, what is escalation? When Russia fires a ballistic missile, Ukraine gets one. Same range, same power. How is that escalation? I'm not sure I quite understand that, but I like the idea. Like, if you fire a ballistic missile at us, we'll fire one at you. It's
that I believe that's what Johnny is saying there. Last time I checked, that would be tit for tat.
Yeah, exactly. That's the phrase. Thank you. My English is poor today.
I'm really trying to fix you today. Your Queen's English is relatively poor today.
Terrible. And Para Andy there. Thank you very much for that super sticker. Very kind of you, my good man. Goose Springsteen again. Do permissions matter if the nations with long-range weapons like Storm Shadow cannot give permissions, even if they want to, due to the US veto on the use of weapons with US state? Well, this is the point, and that's why they're meeting to talk about this today, because effectively the UK said you can use our stuff, however you like within the rules of international military law, and then so that's what Keir Starmer said directly to Zelensky, and then a couple of days later the British MOD had to come out and correct the Prime Minister. Obviously they had information about the scenario from the Americans, and so this wasn't a British. Lots of people at the time were saying, Keir Starmer's gone and restricted the use of it. No, the British were fine with this from the get-go, but it seems to be the Americans effectively blackmailing is probably the best. I don't want to denigrate the Americans unnecessarily, but this is a form of kind of blackmail, which is if you use that stuff, the Ukrainians are free to use Storm Shadows how they like, right? They can go and use Storm Shadows, and the British would have no problem with that. But if they do that, the Americans would go, right, we're not going to give you X, Y, and Z. Now, there is an argument to say that the Ukrainians could call their bluff, which is kind of what they did in the Kursk, which is don't tell the Americans we're going to invade into the Kursk because they would tell us not to. And then when we invade into the Kursk region, then the Americans go, oh, yeah, that was a pretty good idea. So it could be the case that the Ukrainians could use, it would be a high risk thing to do, use these missiles into Russia, and then the US would either have to go, right, we're not going to give you anything else anymore, which means that their strategic objectives would be ruined, like the American strategic objectives. So that would be like the whole point of them supporting them all throughout the war would be thrown out the window. Or the Americans would be forced to go, okay, yeah, we're all right with that. And they get to lift their restrictions by being forced to. So there is that argument. What? Any thoughts on that, Greg?
Well, here, you did a wonderful job there, Johnny. I would just come from a slightly different perspective. I guess it's okay for Russia to use cruise missiles that have U.S. tech against Ukraine, because on the missiles that struck Poltava, inside of those missiles are at the minimum 28 pieces of United States technology.
Great point.
But it's not okay.
Really good.
But it's not okay for Ukraine to use American technology to strike Russia. But it's okay for Russia to use American technology to strike Ukraine.
It just doesn't make any sense. Like, none of us, we all agree it doesn't make any sense. There's absolutely
no, and these are proven facts, guys. I've been in the SBU buildings. I've been in the SBU buildings with the guys who are taking the Russian missiles and drones apart. They lay them out, whatever pieces they can recover, and they analyze every chip, every circuit, every wire, every piece of metal, every piece of everything. And there is American technology in Russian missiles striking Ukraine. So when the United States starts talking about U.S. tech, you need to back up and think about the tech that's in the aggressor's missiles.
Which is why it's really important. Keith Kane makes a good point here. Can you talk about the underground factories Ukraine has and how much the US has invested in their military industrial base? Great question. It's a bit of an unknown, but one of the things is pertinent to the point Greg was making, or that we've been talking about in general, is that in the absence of being able to use US weaponry or Western weaponry into Ukraine, Ukrainians are going to have to be designing, manufacturing their own stuff. Now, I would assume, and I would bloody well hope that the US has been on board with giving them the tech and the know-how to be able to do that, and hopefully for a long time. But these things just take a long time to get off the ground from scratch, effectively, or to take existing missiles like the Neptune missile and make it, and then make it so it's resilient to electronic warfare and stuff like that, and then produce it at scale. But as well, hopefully these things are being produced underground where the factories are going to be protected. We do hear, like we have heard explicitly this last week, that they are doing that. They are building underground, and you would absolutely expect that. I mean, that seems pretty obvious to me. Do you have, I mean, you probably know where certain things are that you shouldn't know, I presume.
Yeah, I do, and of course can't say, but I will tell you in addition to that, for sure, 100%, Ukraine is going to be taking their production underground, and it's not just for the security of their ability to produce without it being destroyed, but it's also they are trying to secure their weakness in operational security. The strike in Poltava was a multi-fold mistake.
But they've known about that for a long time, because I was made aware that they've been using that place since Soviet time.
No.
So
they have been, but you're going to start hearing about it now.
Yeah.
You're going to start hearing about it now because there have been, especially here inside Ukraine, there's just too much looseness.
Yeah.
Okay, looseness with military operations, and they are tightening it up. So one of the ways they can do that is by sharing with the world, hey, we're taking our production underground, we're securing our production, we're doing this. It brings validity to their efforts, and they need that right now to let the world know they're tightening things up. The other thing is, and I'm going to tell you point blank, the amount of collaborators on the front line is shocking.
Yeah. I was going to mention that. Like, there should be no surprise that there are leaks. I mean, it's going to happen because the country has been part of the USSR, and it's got this long history of obviously this joint history with Russia, with the USSR, and so you are going to have, there is an element where there has been a civil war, even though it's little green men from Russia, but there are people who would have been wanting that to happen, and people who have been since brainwashed as well. And so, these people are going to be around Ukraine, and it's going to be very difficult to stop that from happening. So what you can do is mitigate against that, say, yeah, you can know where this is. We don't mind if the Russians know where this is as much because it's underground. Even though they know where it is, even maybe you would hope that their strongest Kinzhal missile still will not damage it. That would be the
hope. I want to answer. I'm just trying to watch the chat a little bit here. I'm still with no power. Isaac Draco. Yeah, maybe there must have been a conversation going on above, but I want to answer it. Yeah, maybe since these are ambulances, back to the armored vehicles, it makes more sense. I was just thinking in general, every unit seems desperate for vehicles. More vehicles means more evacuations and more lives saved. Completely agree with you, but the point that I would like for you to understand and maybe other viewers to understand is if you do not have an armored vehicle, you're going to get killed. That's it.
Yeah.
You can't go extract in an unarmored vehicle anymore. Johnny, half an hour ago, played the sound of one drone.
Yeah.
Okay, you have to imagine going to a zero line where there are dozens and dozens and dozens flying around, and there are only certain windows you can go in. You have to have an armored Kosovac. So that is the reason for that. Additionally, I will tell you guys, the ride along that I was invited to go on last week that I chose to defer and wait for our vehicle to be there for Ukraine. The guy that was wounded was laying 300 meters from the extraction point for 4 days.
Wow.
and they could not
Wow.
get to him because they did not have an armored vehicle.
Yeah. Goodness me. Yeah.
And the night they were going after 4 days to take their unarmored vehicle to 300 meters of him, and they were going to shell that place like crazy so they could save that one man's life.
Yeah. Wow.
So it is just
trying to look after their own.
I say it like this. It's impossible to explain. It has to be experienced. And I know Johnny, even being here on his run, was able to experience a lot. It helped the understanding. And now it's just when you get so much artillery, man, so much.
Actually, Kevin Shao says, chemistry you both have together is wonderful to see. Jonathan, I bet your soul yearns to go back to Ukraine, but your body's not up to it. Damn it. No, my body. I do want to go back, actually. And I need to speak to Greg about this. I know that JR, plenty of people I speak to would love to be part of something. I would like to even spend a little bit more time if I did go back to see something like, say, go to Butcher and pay my respects there. Like some of the, I don't want to call it war tourism because that's harsh, but actually if you're in Ukraine, I would like to just see maybe a few bits of Kiev and some of these iconic areas just to get that side of things as well. So but would 100% be up for that again. So I'll be speaking to Greg to see if that's possible.
I want to say something about that. There are very few people I would invite with me to go, but Johnny Pearce is at the top of the list. That man has a debilitating disease, and he, on all the front lines we ran, never complained one time. It never slowed him down. Well, the one wobble in Kherson where I pushed you back up, and the one trip on the snow in a Zoom where I caught you, and Vadim putting your shoes on. But other than that, it never slowed him. No, but the reality is, I will tell you, I would go to, I had other guys when I first started coming that were American soldiers, multiple tours in Iraq, now security for senators. They wanted to come and as I knew this through another person. He says, Greg, we're just going to pay for them to go with you. You're going to Ukraine 5 or 6 weeks. You got to have somebody with you because you don't know anything what you're doing. Okay. I said, fine, you can send him with me. Thank you. He made it 3 weeks. The first missile rained on us in Kramatorsk. He went straight to Poland and flew home.
Yeah.
How about that for a stud security? Yeah. And Jane and I are hanging out the window trying to film it. And he's looking at us, y'all a bunch of idiots. And we're going, dude, if it's your time to go, you're going. I got news for you. Yeah. And I'm not going to do anything stupid, but what I thought you were a big time stud. Looks to me like you're a coward. And he rolled out of here. That is not Johnny Pearce. I will go to war anytime with Johnny Pearce.
That's very kind of you to say. So I'll be there with you, my friend. Thank you for that. One of yours, Dunk on You 23, who you mentioned earlier, 10 minutes before my next meeting. You'll have good days, Slava Ukraine. You'll have good days. And he gifted 10 Greg Terry Experience memberships as well. So thank you very much, Dunk on You.
Thank you, Dunk.
Frank van der Stam for spare coconut rum to make it through the debate. This one will be crunch time. That's talking about the American political debate tonight between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. I would love to do a live stream version of that, but it will be 2 in the morning for me. Thank you. And by the way, coconut rum I bought from the little whiskey shop in Stockbridge. When I went to give my talk on Ukraine, it was Mark from the little whiskey shop in Stockbridge that booked that and helped to sort that out. So I just want to put some business his way. He's a legend. And Mark Bizcu is another legend that I do not give enough respect to and thanks to, because he's freaking amazing, and Olena is as well. These are both great people, and Greg has met Olena's mum and dad in Snihivka. Snihivka, that was it. It's been a long time since I said it. Mark says the amount of appreciation we feel towards all the non-Ukrainians dedicating their time, risking their lives, giving their lives for Ukraine is something I cannot find enough words for. Mark and Olena. Thank you, Mark Bisque. You are such a legend. And Olena, big love to you, Olena. And I have your book, your dad. You can just see next to the Vishivanka there. There's a red corner to a book. That's a book that I took from. I didn't steal it, but from Olena's dad's bookshelf. He said you can take any of these books, and there was one on philosophy. I'm never going to read it. I can't speak Russian, but I can pretend one day that I'm cleverer than I really am. Anyway, thank you very much. Richard Bennett gifting 5 ATP Geopolitics memberships. Thank you. It's super kind as always. Some Norwegian love from Stephen Bendel. Thank you both for great work you are doing. Hope Greg will stay safe during his stay. Slava Ukraini. Absolutely. I hope that is the case as well, obviously. And Karen L for Greg. An honor to be here. Slava Ukraini.
Good one,
Slava Ukraine. And thank you to Daryl Curson on Greg's behalf. Thank you for all you do, fellas. Thank you, Daryl, for supporting the cause. Gifted ATP Geopolitics membership from UTV and Ham KD9WNV. Thank you very much for that. And there we are. We are up to.
No, I have just a couple more.
Yeah.
I want to answer one, but there was a message. I don't think you pushed it up there.
No, I was looking at a different side.
From Martin Catarils.
I'll find it.
€10. It's a question. What do you think of the death of David Knowles, Telegraph UA podcast host and journalist?
Don't get me started. Oh, my goodness.
Sudden death at 38 from cardiac arrest in Gibraltar. Suspicious, JP?
Right. So, sorry I missed this one. This is incredibly important. So, I listened to that I've listened to virtually every single episode they ever put out. It's an outstanding podcast. I think it's had 100 million downloads. It's the Daily Telegraph's biggest ever podcast. They do and have done tremendous work for Ukraine. They have interviewed everyone who is anyone to do with Ukraine, including ambassadors, Anthony Blinken, big names down to people on the ground in Ukraine, charity workers, Ada Wordsworth, all sorts of different people, and they're all pouring out their respect for David Knowles. It's such a sad loss. He had a sudden cardiac arrest in Gibraltar. Now, some people are, for good reason, I would just defer judgment here, but some people are saying, well, there's quite a big diaspora community of Russians in Spain. Gibraltar's on the southern tip of Spain. I used to live in Gibraltar for 2.5 years, fun fact. We had the Russian helicopter pilot who defected to Ukraine, went to try and live in Spain on the quiet. He was found by the Russians there and shot and killed. So there is that element in Spain. Could there be foul play? Who knows? I mean, without any knowledge of what's happened, it's too difficult. I wouldn't be throwing around conspiracy theories, but it's also not only possible, but moving towards it's plausible. As in, I'm not saying it's probable, but Russia could have something to do with this, but also it could just be a heart defect. So,
yes, and it's sad, and our condolences
really
to his family and to the great value that was brought to the world.
Yeah, because I use that, as I said, I use that podcast for a lot of my source analysis and information, and they have kept Ukraine at the top of the agenda as far as the Daily Telegraph are concerned, as far as their audience are concerned. And David Knowles just personally was, by all accounts, a very decent human being, and his heart was absolutely in the right place. So it's a real loss to Ukraine. So thank you, and I'm really sorry I missed that one. It's super important. From Martin Cotarils, so I presume Belgian there. But anyway, thanks, matey.
Last two things I have. The last two things I have, Johnny. Quick. Susan Camp, Linda S. There were others there. Kepi Blankfella wanting to know about Fish. Fish is doing great. Johnny personally knows Fish, and Fish is fighting like crazy, but safe, alive, healthy, and nonstop. So I will see Fish here in a few days, and I'll get a video and let him say hello to all of you guys. But tough where Fish is at right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Give him my regards when you do speak. Absolutely. There's another one here, Richard Demi. I missed this one. Thank you, Richard Demi. There, that's really, really kind. Super sticker there. And if that's you in that picture, Richard, I have beard envy, which is a thing.
But do you have
one
hair
day.
envy?
So can I just say something? And by the way, thanks again, Richard. Can I just say this? I'm going to quote from somebody who was adding on to what you said about my bald pat, whatever you want to call it. No, it's not that one. Where is it? It's back up here. You'll like this. It's a classic, this, but spot on. JP, when Greg jokes about your head, remember that grass doesn't grow on a busy road. And absolutely true here. And it's not that there are cars driving over my head. That is not, this is metaphorical. And there's just a lot of traffic going on up here. And it has an effect. So like that. So what happens is the knowledge and analysis and just essentially, you could say charisma, maybe good looks as well, but mainly knowledge and charisma, it pushes up. And as it pushes up, because there's so much in it, it's just packed, right? And I sometimes get things coming out of my ear, like as well. It's just pushing out, but mainly it pushes up, and then the hairs just they just fall out because, and I could try and put them back in, but they just fall out because it's just anyway.
Well, there's a couple of things I will say about that. My hair cutter, my person who's done my hair in here for you in Ukraine for so many years, over 20. I went and I said, need a haircut, and she said, Greg, I've been cutting your hair for 20 years. It's very obvious your hair is getting thinner on top. And she goes, it's growing backwards here. And we're just laughing and joking. And then she goes, I don't know where your hair's going. And then about 2 or 3 minutes later, she goes, Greg, I have good news for you. I found your hair. It moved from the top of your head. Now it's growing out of your ears. But don't worry, I'll cut that too. So I know there is hair coming out of your ears, Johnny, for more than one
that's
reason.
why I go to a Turkish barber if I do go to the barber.
And I will tell you, Johnny, I will never forget so much going on top of your head when we were down somewhere running around. Guys, I turned around, and next thing I know, Johnny's singing the old American spiritual song, Oh Happy Day, with the full boisterous atheistic viewpoint of the happiness that he had found in God on our trip. Thirdly, there's two last things. Thirdly, Keith Kane, great comment here. Greg, please do more streams with JP. You guys are great together. Amazing conversation and a respect for each other. Thank you both. Keith, I would agree with that. Johnny and I have often talked about trying to do it like once a week. So maybe we need to be better stewards of that. It's good conversation.
Yeah, and it's been good. So thank you for your time spent here today. Definitely, I've been, I don't know, just insanely busy, and I've done fewer interviews than I normally do, just because there's always so much information, and then my videos go on too long, and I just end up talking too much, and then my day's gone. And then, but then
you get up and do the same thing the next day.
So I think I've just got into the mode of being a machine. Like, I think my life is quite almost mechanistic. And then if I miss it, I'm like, I can't miss it. And I've got all this information, I've collated it all, I have to do it. And then I'm like 1 o'clock in the morning, banging out some more content, just going, I've got to talk it through. They need to know this. Yeah, I'm quite sad.
Well, I will leave everybody with a smile. Here, everybody, we've had a great time. Jason Thomas, did I get the batteries for the Stormtrooper helmet? Not yet, but I'm going to. So I was out having lunch, some friends of mine here in Ukraine, and we took his mother, one of the guy's mother, to lunch. She's 71. We're walking down the sidewalk, and this will give people a look into Ukrainian humor and Ukrainian character, and just, they're wonderful people. We're walking down the sidewalk going to a cafe. This is a true story, by the way, not a joke. And she gets rained on by a pigeon. Full load.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice.
And she turns and goes, I just got bombed by a pigeon. Wait. And the son turned to his mother. She's 71. He's about 48. The son turned to the mother and said, Mom, aren't you now glad that elephants don't fly?
Very good. Very good.
So it was good. Prof. Gertis, I will tell Fish you said hello. So thank you, everybody.
Excellent stuff. Well, thanks, everyone. I really appreciate all the support on behalf of us all.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, do you know, I almost said this. Sorry, I know I knew
you were going there.
But yeah, Pierre often, because you used to call me Stud in the back in the battle bus, and then Pierre now often calls me that. So when we talk on WhatsApp, he's like, "Hey, Stud," and I call him Legend. All right, Ledge.
Well, I will tell you this: Pierre Dupont is a master cigarette roller.
Yeah, this is true. There is no one better in the business. This is true. Even under potential drone fire, he'll be there.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Pierre, get in the truck. We need to go. We need to go. Shane is screaming. Pierre's going, hold on, I'm not finished rolling my stogie yet.
Yeah. Good stuff. He's an absolute legend, Pierre, and he's just a tremendous what the work he's done in helping people out on that Eastern Front line. Absolute phenomenal. So what a legend himself. Look, it's really, really great. We'll do this again pretty soon. Thanks to all of you guys. And if you want to donate still, I guess your
everything's there. Links in the description. Of course, links are always in the description.
They are there below right now, and in my description, and of course Greg. So you can continue to do that. Greg's work is never finished. Sadly, in this war at the moment, it won't be anytime soon. Take care, everybody. Speak soon, and toodle pips.